Hello, everybody. Today we're going to do an A-B test between the LCD-2 closeback that I have been reviewing and its sister, brother, cousin, family member, the LCD XC. That's right, the XC, that is a much more expensive headphone, but also closeback. Now, if we go to the LCD website and look at their LCD series, you see they have a plethora of headphones. The LCD-2 closed is one of their more affordable headphones. I mean, affordable in quotations, obviously. And then we move on to the LCD XC. This is over double the price. Well, this is double the price of the LCD-2. And the differences between these two, because they're both closed back, that's what we're trying to find out. If you want to buy an LCD closed back version, you are pretty much limited to the XC or the 2. Now, there's the XC limited edition, but that only adds a surface change to the ear cup. It doesn't change the driver in any way. And all the others are still open back headphones. And you want to spend your money wisely, obviously. Should you go for the LCD-2 closed or should you go for the LCD XC? Because for a lot of people, this is going to be a one-time purchase. They're not going to go and buy the LCD-3s and then the LCD-4Zs or Z if you're in Europe. You want to pick one for whatever amount of time you're going to listen to them, sell them, and then get another one if that's what you intend to do. So which one of these two is better for you? Now, before we start the test, there are a couple of ground rules. Number one, it's not really a ground rule, but it's just a testing parameter. I'm going to be using the Audeze Deckard headphone amplifier. This is Audeze's own headphone amplifier. It was made for their own headphones, obviously. It's discontinued. I was able to purchase one for a fraction of the price that it's going for right now on eBay. It's working great. Now, what I've done is I have put the volume to about 70% or so, 65, 70%. It's hard to tell when there's no numbers. You're just kind of judging by eyeball. And I'm using the master volume switch on my Mac. So what I've done is I have preset the volume to the loudest I want to hear the headphones, and also put the computer volume to max. So now I've judged what the maximum volume on the amp is going to be, and I've kept it there. And now I have a master switch. It's the Griffin PowerMate that will control my volume, and this will make it a little bit easier for me to control volume instead of having to reach over. But we'll see. Maybe it's not going to make a big difference. So that's parameter one. Parameter two, I may skip around songs. I'm not going to use the same playlist probably. I'll just go with the flow. And parameter three, what are we looking for? We have to give a definition of the items that need to be ticked off. So here are the items we're going to talk about. The bass response, obviously, because these are closed back headphones. And one of the things that closed back headphones are purportedly good at is reproducing bass better than open back headphones. Number two, the mids. Are the mids any muddier between the two? So is the LCD-2 mids frequency muddier or clearer or about the same with the XC? And finally, which has the higher, stronger treble response? Now, we all know, or you should know if you're interested in Audeze headphones, that Audeze limits the treble response. They kind of bring down those peaks on purpose because they want their headphones to be easy listening headphones. And so I want to see if that limitation is in both headphones, and if it is, if it's to the same extent. So the headphone we're going to start with first is the XC, the more expensive one, double the price. And we are going to go to the test playlist, and I'm just going to go in and go with When You Walk Into the Room by Vic and Gab. There's a good reverberation to the cymbals, very natural sounding. The voice is smooth as silk, but there's a little bit of sibilance to her vocal. clear soundstage. There's good bass. Wait, this is not a bassy song. There are drums there, and it's a very natural reproduction of drums. It's not a heavy emphasis on the bass response. So what I'm hearing is it's a lot of detail that's being reproduced that comes out a little bit peaky, if that makes sense. It's most evident when she is singing and when she says S things. That's where the sibilance comes from. And it's not ear piercing to the extent that some might say the Sennheiser HD 700 or 800 have really peaky treble. I don't think it's to that extent, and it certainly isn't to the extent of the DT 1770s were. But it's there, and some people will like it, some people will not like it. I'm just kind of somewhere in the middle. Okay, so I'm going to switch to the LCD-2. And you will have to bear with me because these are very large headphones and the cords are very long, and it takes a bit of effort to get everything together. All right, so the LCD-2 clothes are now on my head. As far as sound isolation goes, I think the XCs actually have better sound isolation, not by a marginal amount, but it's a much noticeable amount. And I think part of that is the clamping force on the XC is slightly higher, and the other reason is because it's wood versus metal, and that's the only difference that I can tell. Okay, so let's start again. There's more emphasis on the bass in the 2 closed. And the sibilance is less. It rolls off, the peaks roll off sooner on the closed, 2 closed, than they do on the XC. As far as vocal reproduction, I think I like the XC more because it sounds a little bit more natural and a little bit smoother to me. And I think there's slightly less detail throughout the song compared to the XC. So by detail, what I mean is in the XC, during this portion of the song, I was hearing more of the string instrument. I was hearing a little bit more on the cymbals. Like the cymbal reverberation was stronger, more articulated. Her voice sounded a little more crackly, therefore natural. But it was still smooth. It's a little weird. On the 2 closed, not as much reverberation on the cymbals. They are less detailed. There's sort of less substance there, even though they are present. Her voice is smooth, but it's not crackly. And so it lacks a little bit of the naturalness in her voice. It seems almost a little bit kind of, it's like you're working with clay and you shape the clay to have this perfect roundness to it. But that's not how people's voices typically are. There's always an edge as you're going up and down in your pitch. And you have to be an incredibly talented individual with perfect vocal cords to be able to do that curve and move your voice up and down the register without any peaks. It doesn't happen very often. Now, what I'm hearing is that the XC demonstrates that there is peaks there. There are peaks there, whereas the LCD-2 closed seems to round it off, and I think that's an artificial rounding to an extent. Okay. Which one is more enjoyable to listen to? For fun, I would say probably the 2 closed because of that roundedness, that artificial gentleness put into the song. And I think that's how actually I should describe it. It's an artificial gentleness to the song. So what the driver is basically doing, what the tuning is that it's taking this recording and it's suppressing some of the peaks, and it rounds off the song so it's a lot easier to listen to. Whereas the XC, it's very unforgiving. If there are peaks, it's going to show. If it's going to be a poor recording, it's going to show. So going off of downloaded songs from Spotify, which I will admit it's not flat quality, that is not even in debate. But if you're listening to Spotify playlists that are going to show issues with very good headphones and a good amplifier, then the LCD-2 is a more forgiving headphone because it does cut off some of that, rolls off on some of those peaks and those imperfections, whereas the XC is actually going to show more of that imperfection. Now, how much more really depends on your amplifier, your DAC, the quality of your song, the processing that's in the song itself as it's recorded, as well as the type of headphone that you have. Now that I have the 2 closed on my head, let's skip to drum solo because we want to talk about the bass, right? So we just talked about a little bit of the mids and a little bit about the treble, the peakiness. Now let's go to drum solo and let's talk about the bass impact. And I've increased the volume a little bit so I can try to get all the detail. There's good impact, very precise. It's not muddy at all. No peakiness. So when you're hitting drums and you're hitting cymbals and you're hitting the hi-hat, there's going to be a bit of pickiness as that first slam comes in. When the drumstick first hits the drum, there's going to be a sharp rap to the drum. Anybody who's ever been to a concert will recognize it. And if you're sitting pretty close to the stage, you'll recognize them. And the LCD-2 closed don't really display that sharpness to the drum strike. It's a very enjoyable experience, but it's more like you're sitting halfway into the audience in a medium-sized hall. You're still enjoying the song, you're still feeling the presence of the drum, but you're not really experiencing all the detail. And that sharp hit when the drumstick first hits the drum is in fact the detail. Okay. I'm going to switch to the XC. And I should also mention that the DAC amp, the Deckard, I have it set on high impedance. I played around with the low impedance and medium impedance before I started recording, and I just want to get as much juice out of this as possible. The Deckard is not a particularly powerful amplifier. It is specifically to drive the LCDs, and that's what it does. But sometimes you got to crank it up in order to get all the detail. So that's what I've done. I'm trying to put it on high impedance and try to get as much detail as possible. Okay, the XC is on my head, and once again, noticeable difference between sound isolation of the two. Is it the most isolating headphone I've ever worn? Absolutely not, but it is noticeably more isolating than the 2C. Here we go with drum solo again. Ooh. I've changed nothing else between taking the 2Cs off and putting the XCs on. The XCs demonstrably, materially have more visceral impact with the bass, with the drums. Yeah. So I got to turn this down because it's starting to get a little too precise. What the XCs are doing is that it is actually showing. Imagine this in your mind. It's actually showing the drummer with all his force, bringing the drumstick down to the head of the drum, and then that first impact, that very first impact, is that sharpness of the hit, and then everything else is the air inside the drum reverberates throughout the drum. Right? That's the pleasant portion of the drum. The hard strike is not as pleasant because it hurts our ears. It's that sharpness. The 2C rolls that off, so you don't feel it, whereas the XCs let you feel it. That's why I say it's much more visceral. Yeah, this is not even a contest. This is the clearest differentiation I have ever had between headphones comparing A and B so far. Now, I've had headphones in the past where I've said, I think this is a little bit better, and this is why I'm saying it, this particular portion of the song. No, no, no. Between the 2C and the XC on this song, it is night and day difference. The 2C simply does not reproduce the drum strike as viscerally, as detailed as the XC. I'm not necessarily surprised by that, but I am pleasant. Well, if I just said I'm not surprised by it, but I was about to say I'm pleasantly surprised, so it's an oxymoron. I'm not surprised that the XCs reproduce the bass, the drum strikes better. I'm just surprised that I was able to differentiate it as quickly as I did, which is like within seconds. So that was a surprising part, how quickly I could tell the difference. Okay, well, since we're on the drums thing, let's just go to Kodo, because that is all drums and various types of drums. Let's try Lion. And once again, I have the XCs on. So the sharpness here is to the vocals. The song, when it starts, it's the vocalist going hoo, ha, hoo, ha. And when they say ha, their voices peak at the ah part, ha. The XCs reproduce that, and it shows the peak. It's a much more visceral. It's like it's inside your eardrum. Same thing. The drum strikes. Now, these drums are very different from the drum that we just heard, or I just heard. Hopefully, if you're listening to the song, then you just heard, but that I just heard on the drum solo portion, the previous song. These are very, very different drums. These are Japanese drums. These are drums of various sizes, using various implements to strike the drums, plural. And so their sound is different from the drum solo, but they still are visceral. Like I can hear that drum strike. It's like I'm sitting maybe third row, fourth row away from the stage instead of in the middle of the audience. Okay. I'm going to switch to the two closed. I was going to say 2C. I mean, that's what I want to say. It's the 2C, but apparently 2C means the 2 classic. And if you hear yelling and screaming in the background, that's children outside yelling and screaming. There's an old movie. No, it's not a movie. It's from Arrested Development. I think the first season or the second season, where they send one of the characters to a boarding school, and the motto of the boarding school is that children should be neither seen nor heard. I follow that philosophy, or I would like that philosophy to be implemented. Okay, Now I have the 2C on. Here we go. Yeah. So remember what I said that the vocalists start off with hoo ha, and there's a peakiness at the ha part. There's no peakiness with the 2C. Ugh, too closed. If I say 2C, I mean too close. It's rolled off much sooner. Now the drums are very pleasurable with the two closed, but it doesn't have that visceralness to it. The peakiness of the drum strike with whatever implement they're using, let's say it's a drumstick, is muted compared to the XC. Yeah. Okay, so I don't think I need to listen anymore. I can tell you right now that the XC reproduces the drum strikes with a lot more detail. It's not a subtle difference. It's not, maybe it's a 5% difference if I had to put a number on it. No. It's a considerable difference. It's like night and day. It's a difference between noon and 8 p.m. It's not the difference between dawn and dusk, because dawn and dusk, if you're standing there and you just had a concussion and you're looking out and you can't tell whether it's dawn or dusk, and that's understandable. But noon and 8 o'clock at night, that's what I would say is the difference. When I say dawn and dusk, I mean those things are very similar. You know, the lighting is very similar, and you know you could be forgiven for mistaking one or the other. No. The XC reproduces the drum strikes in both of these songs exceptionally well, with a lot more detail. So if you're looking for detail, the XC has it. However, if you're looking for a pleasurable listen, if you just want to sit down and relax and let the music just flow over you, the 2Cs, the two closed, is the more preferable headphone. Because of those early roll-offs, because of that more smooth tonality to the music. And I think that's going to be, from the rest of the songs here, that's going to be really the differentiation. Whether one headphone is made for mastering, for monitoring, and the other is made for enjoying. So far, out of the three songs, it's been very clear the XCs are for mastering and mixing, and the two closed are more for enjoying after you master and you mix. Let's go back to the test playlist. And I'm going to do Angel, because that is a very bass heavy and a lot of electronic bass song. So let's start with that. I have the two closed on. And I can hear the bass rumble about a second and a half into the song. And it's a really good, smooth bass reproduction. There's that low rumble in the background. I've said this before. There are layers to the bass in this song. At the very bottom is a low rumble that pervades through the entire 6 minutes of this song. And it's clearly audible in the two closed. I think this test for this song is really about the low rumble, how well it can be reproduced, and the vocal. And the vocal comes in about 1 minute into the song. On the 2C, too closed, the vocal is very smooth. I'm going to stop it there. I'm going to switch to the XC. By the way, I did get the balance cable. I got the balance cable from PeriApp today for the Audeze headphones. But I'm not trying it with the balance, because if I tried it with the balanced, then not only would I have to switch back and forth with the headphones, but I would also have to switch out the balance cable. And that's a lot of work. Prone to danger. Because these are mini XLRs, and if I position something incorrectly, it's going to be a problem. So we're just using standard cables. Low rumble and the vocal coming in about 1 minute. That's what we're looking for. Here we go. So here's one thing I noticed already. I'm going to go back. Yep. Oops. So as this song immediately plays, there's a hiss in the background. It's like the hiss to an old tape recorder. And when it comes to an end, that there's no more recording, but there's still tape left, there's a little bit of hiss. That's the bottom layer. Okay, that's the very bottom layer. Now there's one more layer underneath the original layer that I told you about. Remember, a few minutes ago I said this song is layered, and I'm giving myself a really masculine voice. This song is really layered. I don't know why it's a drunk masculine voice. This song is really layered, and the very lowest layer is this rumble. Well, it appears that there is actually one step lower, and it's that hiss. Because there's that hiss, and it's so faint, and it comes up immediately as the song starts. I didn't hear it on the two closed. I hear it on the XE, and the rumble. I think the rumble starts a little bit, just a fraction of a second sooner, and this is just my impression. Maybe I'm totally wrong, but it seems to start a little bit sooner than with the two closed. Let me go back and let's start again. The rumble is much stronger. And the drum hit is much more detailed, much more precise, much more visceral. So what happened with the two closed is that the low rumble remained a low rumble. With the XC, that rumble is much more present. But it does not take away from any of the other bass implementation in the song, the other layers of bass. It does its own thing, but it's more pronounced. And I still hear a little bit of that hiss all the way at the bottom. It's faint, but I can hear it. The vocalist is not as smooth as the two closed. His voice is a little bit sharper and less pleasurable, less smooth. So if I'm detail hunting, it's the XC that I would use. If I was mastering this song and I was sitting across from the artist of Massive Attack, and I was listening to the way that they were working on the computer to try to, or mixer, try to mix all these elements together, I would use the XCs over the two closed, because I would want to have all those layers of details. I would want to know how strong the hiss has to be or should be, and I would want to know how strong that rumble is and how it impacts the rest of the instruments, the rest of the layers. The rumble comes out stronger on the XC. And part of that reason is because it's more detailed There's more to it. There's more substance. There is more imperfection to it. And the most striking thing is the vocalist. Around 1 minute, it's much more smooth on the two closed, and it's much more imperfect and rough and detailed on the XE. Once again, a consistent result. All four songs so far have clearly shown what these two headphones are made for. They are not the same type. They are not in the same league. I'll do another test. Let's do... I know. We'll do Flight from the City. It's a piano song. Johan Johansson. It's a beautiful song. I had the XCs on. Here we go. There's clear detail. I'm not even going to worry about the fact that these two have detail. They have clear detail. Which one is more detailed is the question. And once again, the piano is much more visceral. Okay, I shouldn't say much more visceral because I haven't heard it on the 2C yet. But it's very visceral on the XC. I hear micro details in the song, meaning the leaning forward and backwards in the seat as the piano starts playing. There's that sizzle and pop of electricity as one of the layers in this song. All right, so let me try something here, because I'm interested in excuse me, in doing a different test here. So I have Music Scope, which is a music analysis software, but it also plays FLAC and higher resolution file formats. And what Music Scope, if I can get it, where is it? There it is. And one of the things that Music Scope does is it allows me to play some FLAC files. And I actually have Johan Johansson's album for this song. If I can just, there it is. The album is called Orphe. And obviously, of course, I don't have the title. I wish I had the title. Oh, and it's #1. Oh, I need to bring the volume down a little bit. So I'm going to pop that into... Come on, let me pop this in. You're not going to let me play, are you? All right, let me just try to play with foobar. Yeah, for whatever reason, Music Scope does not want to work as a finicky program. So go away. I'll just use foobar 2000, which is much less useful on the Mac than it is on Windows. Anybody, whoever makes foobar, make it full featured for the Mac, please. All right, so I need to bring the volume down a little bit because it's much stronger on FLAC. Here we go again. XC's on. I could say this, between the FLAC file and the Spotify file, the FLAC file has much more detail and more soundstage from the detail. What the XE is doing with the piano is consistent with what it has been doing with all the other songs, meaning the piano is just in your face. It's like you're sitting 10 feet away from the piano with the cover open and your ear is tilted towards the piano, and it's focused right into your ear canal. It's giving you all of that detail. Now I have the two closed on, and let's try again with that. The sound is a little bit more muffled in the two closed. And I say muffled not in the sense that it sounds terrible. It doesn't. It's just that there's less detail to the piano than there was on the XC. And the piano strikes are less visceral, less sharp. And when I say visceral, that's what I mean. It's less sharp than on the XC. There you are. Another consistent result. FLAC, not FLAC, whatever. The LCD-2 closed simply has an earlier roll-off. And it's designed to give a much more smooth, more pleasurable experience to the song while still retaining a lot of that detail. And these headphones have plenty of detail. They have sufficient amount of detail for enjoyment. Let's put it that way. They have plenty of soundstage and depth, but it's not a headphone that I would say you should use for professional mixing or mastering. If you're a producer and you are producing your fifth or sixth album, or you're thinking about producing your second or third album, and you're really about to make it big because you've got this artist or whatever, which one should you try? Well, if you're happy with what you've had before and it's given you success, then don't change anything. Don't change what works. However, between the two, if somebody gave you the option, say, hey, look, man, I'm going to pay for your next pair of headphones. Option A is the LCD-2 closed. Option B is the XC. Which one do you want for mixing and mastering? Your answer should probably be the XC, especially if they're paying for it. The XC gives you a tremendous amount of detail, tremendous amount of impact, the visceralness, the sharpness, the treble, the experience of the song. Now, when I say experience, I have to be careful. I have to elaborate. When you wear the two closed, you have a very unique experience. I have a very unique experience. The two closed is a gentle, soft, soothing headphone. That's an experience. The XC is not so gentle. It's not soft. It's in your face. It tells you, hey man, this is exactly what's in the song. And that is also an experience. Now, the XC versus the Atticus. Now, the Atticus is much more visceral than the XC. And it just hammers. I mean, the Atticus, what it does is, the ZMF Atticus, is that it takes what the XC does, right? If I have to give you an explanation, it takes what the XC does and it ratchets up a couple of notches and says, oh yeah? Well, I'm doubling down and this is what I can do even better. But that's not for everybody. The ZMF Atticus is a taste to be acquired. It's like Swiss cheese. The first or second or third or fourth or fifth or sixth or seventh or eighth or ninth or 10th time that you have the Swiss cheese, you're like, it's not the best. And then, after a while, you're like, maybe I want some Swiss cheese. It's not the best tasting cheese out there, but once you get the taste for it, you want to go back. The Atticus is not the type of headphone you would pick up and go, I want to listen to this all the time. I wouldn't say that. The XC is also not the type of headphone I would say, I always want to listen to the XC all the time. But it is the headphone I would pick up before I pick up the two closed if I were to want to mix and master. That's the bottom line. That's the test. That is my result between the two closed and and the XC. When you are looking for an Audeze mastering headphone and you have a budget of no more than $2,000, I mean, there are plenty of other headphones to choose from. You can choose the HD800, 800S, the HD820. You have a significant number of headphones from Hi-Fi Man to choose from, although Hi-Fi Man doesn't make closed-back headphones for whatever reason. You have Denons to choose. You have plenty of headphones to choose from, sub $2,000. But let's say you are focused on Audeze, under $2,000. Well, your options are very limited, and if you want closed-back, you only have two options anyway. And it's the XC and it's the two closed. Which one do you pick? Well, if you want to relax, listen to your music, enjoy your time, the two closed is the way to go, bar none. I would pick that over any other headphone in the Audeze line if you want to just relax, because it just gives you such a smooth and wonderful and warm and gushing sound. But if you want more detail and you want the impact, the visceralness, the sharpness, the treble, and you want to know when the song is kind of doing something funky, then the XC is the way to go. At the end of the day, you have to decide what it is you want to do with the headphone. Once you have an end goal, once you say, this is the job I want to accomplish very precisely. It's not just, I want to listen to songs. I want to enjoy songs. So that's not really a realistic goal, because it doesn't define what you're looking for. Because every company and every individual is going to say, oh, that headphone, I enjoy songs on that headphone. That doesn't mean anything. You have to define it much more precisely. You have to say, I want a headphone that gives me a lot of detail. I want the treble peaks, and I don't want unnatural emphasis on the bass. Those are precise things that you should be looking for. In the alternative, you can say, I don't want the harshness. I want warmth. I want to sit there and just enjoy the music. There I go with the word enjoy. I want to be able to listen to the music without the high peaks and without muddiness. But I want to enjoy the bass. I want the bass to be present, but not overpowering. And I also don't want the peakiness. So what do you do? That's the definition of a closed, relaxed headphone. And that's the two closed, in my opinion. Hopefully this has been of some help. If you're choosing or if you're considering between these two headphones, now you know that these two headphones are completely different types of headphones. They're not in the same ballpark. They might be playing baseball, but they're not in the same state. They're not in the same ballpark. They're not in the same league. They're completely different. All right? One is AAA. The other is AA. They're doing two very different things. So if you're confused, and if you were confused and you watch this or listen to this video, you shouldn't be confused anymore. These two headphones do not do the same thing. They're not. The Audeze website is not very clear about what these headphones are actually doing, which is consistent with every headphone manufacturer out there. They're not very clear about what their headphones are for. But I'll tell you right now, the XCs are for mixing and mastering and for detail. The two closed are for enjoyment, relaxing, being easy with your listening experience. Putting your feet up and just taking it all in. You decide which one you want, which experience you want to have. And once you decide which experience you want to have, then you'll have an answer of which headphone best accommodates, or better, because there's only two, which headphone better accommodates your desired listening experience. Have a wonderful night, and I really hope these children stop crying and yelling and screaming in the background, because I am going insane. Have a wonderful night, and I will upload another video with another comparison in a couple of days.